Now beginning transmission 138. Identity crisis. File under family drama.
Come on, you fuckers think that just because a guy reads comics he can't start some shit? I'll fucking take all you want!
Welcome to this week's episode of the Funny Books and Firewater Podcast.
面白い本と歌手ポッドキャストの今週のエピソードへようこそ。
Ignore her. She drinks.
Each week a motley band of comic readers / amateur bartenders attempt to pair cocktails with comic books.
毎週漫画の読者の雑多なバンドはスラッシュアマチュア入札しようと漫画とペアカクテルバーです。
All while trying to not sound like complete morons in the
すべ
process.
ての中にしようとして音ではないような完了プロセスで低能です。
Kind of like a speakeasy kind of thing. It's kind of cool.
You can find these idiots on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr.
Facebook、Twitter、Instagram や Tumblr にこれらのバカを検索できます。
No, what?
You read too many comic books.
We now join Brian, Jeremiah, Adam, and Todd.
They're used to curious sights which they attribute to alcoholic delusions.
They may be drinkers, Robin, but they're also human beings.
I'm too sober for this shit. Here is a drinking game to play while you listen to this episode. Please drink responsibly, and don't take it too seriously. And if you don't like it, blame William.
Take a drink anytime Mr. Porg decides to interject himself into the conversation. Shut up, Porg.
You need to take a drink anytime Manny Bothhands makes an appearance, and I get groans and fuck yous from Adam and Maya.
Fuck Manny Bothhand!
Manny Bothhand is pure genius.
Take a drink anytime someone refers to me as the cum dumpster.
Take a drink every time the Shame Bell makes an appearance.
Also, take a drink anytime we act like the member berries from South Park. Remember when they were on South Park?
I remember.
Yeah, and take a drink every time we do the bad German accent, yeah.
Drink, fucker!
If you have any suggestions for rules you would like to add, email us at funnybooksandfirewater@gmail.com or use the contact link on our website, funnybooksandfirewater.com.
Adam, is the recording light turned on?
Yes.
Yes,
Has there
it's
been a
on.
time when it
No,
hasn't
it's
been turned
not.
on?
He's lying.
He's lying
Oh.
to me? What a jerk.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, not the one on the computer, the one on like that you got from your gift.
There we go.
There, it's official. We can officially begin the show.
Okay, thank goodness. Welcome to episode 137? 8? Which one is it?
Many.
Yeah.
Episode
138. It's episode 138 of the Funny Books and Firewater podcast. This month we are starting our month. We figured, hey, man, it's the holidays. We're doing a month of family drama. And so we're starting out this week with the DC and what I'm told very divisive book, Identity Crisis. We'll get into that later.
Panel intro.
Speaking of divisive, we have with us the standard accoutrement of people. We have Mr. Todd.
Hi, I'm Todd. You can find me as a co-panelist here on Funny Books and Firewater. I also do English class hooligans sometimes with my better half, Amy.
Hi, Amy.
Hey, as well as the cat herder himself, Brian.
Someday you have to introduce
So-
Amy as the cat herder and me as the better half.
Well, that,
I've known you longer.
yeah, that's fair. That's true. That's true.
Speaking of Todd's better
Okay.
half, we have Mr. Maya. I don't know why I segued that way. I just did.
Hey, I'm Todd's better half, Mr. Maya.
Hey!
You can catch me on Twitter at Mr. Maya or Instagram at the Mr. Maya. And as we record this, which will be a month ago as you listen to this, it's my birthday.
It's your birthday, Maya.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, pumpkin.
I was telling Maya earlier, now he's going to be a real boy.
Oh, yeah?
He grew
Is
up.
this a magical age?
It's an age.
34.
Oh, no.
34?
That's
I
good for
wish
you.
I was 34 again. What? Such young and innocent times.
Really? I don't.
Well, Obama was president.
Well, I guess that's a valid point.
This is true, yeah. And our blue wave turned into a blue ripple. So
That's true.
It's still there. Still blue.
Anyway, speaking of a ripple turning into a wave, we have the other birthday boy, Mr. Adam.
Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Adam with Big Shiny Robot, also over at the Bored as Hell podcast with Andy Wilson.
Hi,
Andy.
Hey, Andy.
Hello, Andy.
Hello.
Also over on Cinema Queens with a good friend, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Yeah, my birthday is this weekend, and I will be 38, or as we're calling it, 2 Clarks.
Clark squared.
Clark squared, exactly. So I think I would have named my birthday party that, but I might have pissed some people off. So
sure.
Not that I really care about that anymore, but still.
You don't give a fuck.
I am out of fucks to give.
And hey, I'm Brian. I'm a sound designer based out of Southern California and a cat herder on this show and on English Class Hooligans. And yeah, so I do shit, but I can't talk about it. And I'm now a grad student. That's the other fun thing.
Hey, way to go.
All we can tell you is that he does not work for the government.
Not yet.
Are you sure? Which government are we talking about?
Yeah, no, it is the evil empire.
Wait, doesn't an evil empire actually like run a city and like owns a city down in the, the little dick of America?
Yes, they do. Yes, that is true.
The dick of America, is that Florida? Since it kind of jets out from the...
Yeah.
It's an
America's
old
penis.
stupid joke. It's America's little penis there. There's little floppy and flaccid.
Actually, Patton Oswalt said it better. It's not the flaccid dick of America. It's actually a pustuling boil.
Okay.
That needs to be lanced and drained into the ocean.
It's where the old people move to die.
Yes.
And fuck up elections.
Yes.
Todd, who was it that there was I think it was K-Bear. They used to have a radio station that they would do a quiz every week that was Germany or Florida, and they would read a really crazy news story, and you'd have to guess if it took place in Germany or Florida.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I'm guessing it was always Florida.
No, it wasn't. And sometimes they'd throw you off because sometimes there'd be an alligator involved, and you would assume there'd be Florida, but it was actually Germany.
So Florida has to report everything with the way their laws are set up and make them searchable. Most states don't. So a lot of people's like, look at all this crazy shit happening in Florida, but they've got transparency laws for police blotters and a number of other things that are coming through. That makes things highly searchable and easy to find. And
that makes a lot of sense, actually.
And many states don't have those similar laws. So is there crazy shit in Florida? By all means.
But is it statistically more than other places? Potentially not.
Potentially not. It's just exposed. So that's what you get for exposing yourself, Florida. Which is the problem.
One of my favorite sayings is, tell people you love them to show them that life has hope, but scream it at them in German so they can know that life is terrifying.
And confusing.
Yes.
And confusing, yes.
Yeah. Cool. Well, speaking of terrifying and confusing, actually, let me get my... I did this all in the wrong order last week. Let me pull out my list so I can actually do this all.
Let me whip this thing out.
Excuse me while I whip this
It's
out.
not an itinerary. It is an agenda.
I just call it show order. But
yes.
Yeah. Okay, so before we get into this...
Book intro.
What we're dealing with here is a book about the significant other of a lesser-known hero being killed and it causing a panic through the ranks of the superhero world as they scramble to try to A, find the killer, and B, protect their loved ones as other attempts are taken and things like that happen. Does that seem fair as a very brief intro without spoiling anything?
Yeah, I would just add that Heroes Dirty Laundry also comes out and causes problems.
Yes, absolutely.
Myification.
How would you classify this as a myification?
It's for mature audiences.
Mature,
who don't giggle at dick and fart jokes.
Or rape.
Yeah, there aren't a lot of dick and fart jokes in this book. It's not quite
Battle Pope.
Watchmen. It's not Battle Pope. But it's also not quite Watchmen.
It's not quite Watchmen, but it is.
It's closer to Watchmen than it is to Battle Pope, though. That's
right.
for sure.
So I mean, it's very much a superhero book in the title and in the drawings, but the themes are quite the departure.
Would you say it's a superhero brook or superhero crick?
The fuck out of here.
I was gonna wonder if you were gonna call him on that shit or not. I didn't say anything.
That's fair. I'm not drinking enough.
Well, apparently you need to drink some more because guess what? It's time for drinking games. Woo! I'm on cold medication, kids. It's gonna be wacky.
Ooh, is it the good stuff they can make?
Hey, I hear that's the follow-up band to Cold War Kids or the Cold Medication Kids.
What did you think of Cold War Kids? We never really
now you
discussed
can
that.
get the fuck out of here. It's just me and Brian now.
That's those two. I enjoyed Cold War Kids. The mix was interesting. What I heard was a singer, a piano with a little bit of drums, and everyone else didn't matter.
Yeah, that's sort of was. Yeah, the mix wasn't necessarily great, but it was a festival stage, so I don't blame those kind of things on the band. I always blame those on the engineer.
Right, and the lighting made me crazy.
Yeah, I also a festival.
It was a festival thing, but I'll say the band from the previous night did not have that. But I guess they were the headliners.
Well, they were also set up further back on the stage.
Yeah, that's true too. But the Empire of the Sun had a very different thing going on.
Yeah, they did. But they had a whole other weird. That was a whole other different animal. We'll discuss that later.
All right,
probably.
Yeah.
Drinking game.
For drinking game rules, we'll start with Mr. Maya, the birthday boy.
So my drinking game is called What Did You Do, Ray? Basically, anytime someone confronts someone else about a questionable action that they've recently taken or taken in the past once it comes out. And it has double meaning because the atom is in this. Ray.
Well, and the atom references my my drinking game rule, actually. So mine I'm calling Shrinky Dink, which is every time someone changes shape or size, take a drink, which also will reference to the elongated man. Mr. Adam, what is your drinking game rule?
So mine is called Who Do You Think You Are, Dr. Manhattan? Every time that scene occurs either before or after the present time, and it's like 6 minutes until now or 20 minutes from now, take a drink.
And Mr. Todd?
Mine is the Why So Serious. So every time something happens in the book where people are like glum and serious about the shitty things that happen, you need to take a drink. Just once per page, though.
So take a drink for the sads.
Yes.
So now it is time for our new feature. We are creating a playlist of songs for you to listen to while you read this book.
Playlist.
We'll go once again with the birthday boy, Mr. Maya.
So for reasons that'll become apparent when we actually talk about the book, I picked Where Is My Mind by the Pixies.
Which I think is like the third time that song has appeared on these playlists.
Has it really?
Yeah.
What's interesting with that, I went and saw Pixies in concert. They opened for Weezer, and my wife is currently under a condition.
My wife.
Yes, and so Pixies and Weezer played. While Pixies were playing, the little fetus was dancing all around and moving a shit ton. Weezer came out, nothing.
Because one band is better than the other, so...
Your kid is a snob.
Yes. So, for a hot minute there, we were playing with the idea of what if we just name her Pixie?
What about a cold minute?
That would be cool.
It is, but you know, it's a fun...
That's a fucked up adult name, but it's a cute kid name.
It is, and you need someone with a strong personality to embrace the name for it to work well. Otherwise, I'm just an asshole.
So their initials are PP?
I'm toilet paper. And Amy is an app.
I'd rather be an app than toilet paper or PP.
I'm seeing. My middle name is actually Parker, so either I was PP or TP or TPP.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Or they could have given you a middle name of like Oswald and you could have been Top.
Well, my mother originally wanted to name me Logan, so thank you, Dad.
LP works out.
If you were British and had like 4 names and your first name was with an H, it could be HTTP.
Yeah, now it's time for you to get the...
And if we did,
it's Josh Bryan now. None of us.
Right, Brian's doing the show by himself. See ya.
But you could be HTTP Esquire and you could be HTTPS.
Fuck me, right? Mr. Todd, what's your
Come to me last.
Song? Fuck.
No, you just keep the order like you said.
Okay, fine. I'll keep the order then. Mr. Adam.
Mine is from Deadpool 2, Ashes by Celine Dion.
Okay. Mine is... That's sort of dark in a fucked up way and beautiful way.
But maybe the techno remix. I don't know. Whichever one you prefer.
I know. This one Adam's going to appreciate. I'm doing Brain Stew by Green Day.
That's actually one of the only Green Day songs I don't like.
Yeah, but it's
Way to go,
Green
Brian.
Day.
What's the one? The best one is when you have Godzilla screaming in it.
I do like that version, actually. Have you heard that version?
I don't think so, no.
It's on the Godzilla soundtrack, and it was the best thing about all of it.
Yeah, like it had like some symphony strings in it and all sorts of stuff. You know, it
has the P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Come to Me, whatever it was. You know, their Kashmir.
Oh, that one was. That's a terrible song.
Sure.
I just know I got the Batman Forever soundtrack for the Seal song.
Oh,
and the U2 song. Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me.
Also, no, isn't... I thought Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me was actually a Smashing Pumpkins song.
Nope,
that's U2.
Which one was the Smashing Pumpkins one that was on?
The beginning is the end, is the beginning is the beginning.
And that was Batman and Robin, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, wrong movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and Billy Corgan is kind of crazy.
And that was a song that was also used in the Watchmen trailer.
Mm-hmm. Slowed down and, Snyderified.
I do like the Bob Dylan song that opens the movie Watchmen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then Demolition Road or whatever it is?
No, the times are changing.
Times are changing, that's right. And then, but there's a Bob Dylan cover by
My Chemical
Romance on the soundtrack of Watchmen as well.
Okay.
This is your superhero movie soundtrack podcast where we analyze all the soundtracks for superhero and pop culture movies.
All right. Yeah. So my song choice is a little bit fucked up, but we'll go with it.
More fucked up than Ashes?
It's All the Things She Said by Tattoo.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I didn't even think about the significance of Ashes. Oh my! Yeah, that didn't even cross my head, and I was like, "Why is that fucked up?" It's just about and like,
oh. See, now you're following me.
Yes.
Anyway, okay.
Final warnings.
Okay, so do we have any final warnings for people before we go into our little intermission break thingamajiggy?
If you want to read a feel-good book,
this is not the book for you.
I will actually give a warning because it kind of took me by surprise. There is over in like the first issue or two, pretty graphic rape scene. So if that's something that you need to prepare yourself for, or something you don't want to handle, I would skip over that part.
Yeah, there's a trigger warning for that for sure.
Second issue.
Yeah. So, and it's not really relevant to the story. I think we'll talk about it when we get into it. So.
Yes. Also, warning that this book is very divisive from what I've been told, and Todd and I discussed it briefly as he was driving over here. But we'll get into that as well. There'll probably be a discussion as to why this is as divisive as it is. Fuck. We didn't do votes. I did this in completely wrong order. We didn't vote.
It's like someone should have an order list in front of them.
Shut the fuck up. Okay.
Brian, get the fuck out of here. No one's doing the podcast now.
I know.
We'll invite Sierra and Eddie over. They can do the podcast.
There you go. Just let them handle it. That would be very entertaining and very interesting. Speaking of which, I sent it to Adam, but we got the weirdest. I don't know if I call it a fan letter or not. From an
excited.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll get into that after the break. I'll pull it up after. But let's do votes as to whether or not we believe that it is worth you, our dear listeners, hard-earned time, money, and effort to go and hunt this book down and give it a read.
Validity votes.
So, Mr. Todd, what is your vote?
Yes.
Mr. Adam?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Maya, what is yours?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Now.
LCC.
LCC. So we all think that you should read it, although it is a divisive book, apparently. We will get into that. Anything else that we want to warn people about, or is that pretty good there?
I think we kind of covered the one big thing people should know about going in, so.
Okay. Well, so then we will take a brief break. This is your time to read the book if you haven't done so already. Also serves as a warning that we are going to spoil the shit out of it. So spoilers be ahead, me matey.
Yeah, we
will spoil it all over the place like sour milk. And then we'll make the sauerkraut.
No.
That's
no.
That's gross.
I'm not
also, that's not how they make sauerkraut. Just in case you were wondering, for our listeners.
How do they make sauerkraut?
They put a bunch of cabbage with dog shit and let it ferment.
Oh, I was expecting some sort of joke out of that actually.
They stick it up. Never mind. I'm not gonna go there.
Yeah, no, we won't. Yeah, we won't go there. Okay. So anyway, when we get back, we will spoil it. So you've been warned. We'll see you on the flip side.
Flippy.
If you have yet to read this week's book and would like to read it now, press pause. Go ahead. We'll wait.
Sissy that wow. Hey there! Are you queer or some variation of it? Well, I'm Chris, and this is my co-host,
Adam. And welcome to Cinema Queens, where we talk about queer cinema.
Each week, we watch beloved queer classics, discuss them, review them,
and cover a whole cluster of topics from our favorite scenes,
what they mean to us,
how it relates to our current world,
and the best part, the cherry on top of the sundae, happens to be
gay rants.
So prepare your ear holes
and listen to us Queens talk cinema. New episodes drop every Monday on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. Bye-bye.
Oh, so I have an ex-girlfriend of mine who I got this message from on Instagram, right? So, and this is from the episode that our friend Jason was on, so that me and Jason ended up both dating this girl at the same time, which will explain one of the comments she said here. So she wrote...
Eiffel Tower.
No, not at the same time, thank God. That would have been way too awkward.
Game of Devil's Triangle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's a drinking game. Yes.
we know so because a Supreme Court justice informed me about that.
She wrote, "So I've started listening to your podcast. ... 2 things. Number 1, y'all are hilarious. ... So congratulations to all of you. I'm putting that on you more than me. And number 2, it's fucking strange to hear 2 of my exes nerding out on a podcast and then an emoji with it crying. So there you go. I can imagine how awkward that was. I also told her that I would laugh my ass off if she posted that as a review on iTunes. Because that would be like my favorite thing. My favorite review ever on iTunes would be that.
Yeah, his friend that was on.
Jason.
Oh!
Yeah.
Jason, who was going to try to do this week's episode as well, but he's busy. He's going to come back at some point in time. But he's a writer friend who worked on
Daredevil.
Daredevil, yeah.
Gig going?
He's what?
He's got another gig going on.
He's always bouncing between things. He's a writer, so he's always working weird hours.
Member of the gig economy.
Gig economy for sure.
I hate that term.
I kind of understand that. Well, let's jump into, because I know people have places to go and things to do and things to see.
Important.
I know.
Es muy importante. So, Mr. Birthday Boy, Mr. Maya, will you do the honors and give us a brief, spoilery summary as to what this book entails?
Plot summary.
So the book starts off with Elongated Man, whose powers are very similar to Plastic Man, but they are different. Elongated Man and another kind of D-list character, Firehawk, out on patrol. Elongated Man and Firehawk are talking, and he's like, "Yeah, my wife always likes to do a mystery for my birthday because he is a detective whose skills, I would say, are on par with Batman when it comes to actual detecting." And she's like, "Well, your birthday isn't for a few months." And he's like, "Yeah, she thinks she's doing it to throw me off." In between this whole conversation, while they're out on patrol, we kind of see, he tells Firehawk the story of how they met. We get nice little family scenes, like between Clark Kent and his parents, where he, shows his mom, like, "Hey, I found this check you mailed in, you don't have to pay for a subscription." And she's like, "Well, I'm going to keep sending it back." There's a scene with Dick Grayson and Starfire, where he's kind of visiting his parents' grave on their birthday, just kind of little personal scenes in between all of this. Elongated Man and Firehawk are watching this box, which they think might have guns in it or something. Some gang members look like they're going to sell them. Then, also kind of in between all this, we see his wife getting ready for the party. She hears a noise and says, "Hello, is anyone there?" And a few pages later, she calls Ralph, all scared, and he ends up going to see her, like going to save her really fast, and by the time he gets her there, she's dead. And then we see that someone had burned the body.
Hence the ashes reference, Mr. Adam. Thank you very much.
And not only was she murdered and burned, in her present to him that she got for his birthday, which was like this antique magnifying glass, was also a pregnancy test saying that she was pregnant. Then the rest of the issue is just kind of people dealing with, contacting their loved ones. Ray Palmer goes to his ex-wife, Jean Loring. A bunch of the other heroes are like at the crime scene, kind of investigating, like the Metal Men, the Ray, Mr. Miracle, Batman, Green Arrow. We have the wedding, or not the wedding.
That's kind of a fucked up wedding.
Yeah, more fucked up than the red wedding.
I don't know, the purple was messed up too.
The funeral, like Wonder Woman's choked up, everyone's choked up. Elongated Man and Sue Dimney were kind of in the public's eye, like they were kind of, could be considered by some like the heart and soul of the hero community. She was even an honorary member of the Justice League, which they even said that even Lois Lane didn't have that distinction. Ralph goes to eulogize her, can't hold his shape together, starts bawling. In the end of the issue, a group of the Justice League are together. After everyone leaves, they're all going to find villains that are known for having either burning powers or burning people. And everyone else goes all their separate directions except this little group. And it's the group of the Justice... When Ralph was a member of the Justice League, it's that group. And he says, "Help me find Dr. Light." Next issue, we see Ray Palmer is giving Jean a crossbow for protection. It cuts back to Ralph and their Justice League, and Kyle Rayner and Wally West are there. They were like spying on them. They want to know why everyone else was assigned went after someone, but they didn't. And then they tell the story of the time that Dr. Light managed to get onto the Justice League satellite. While Sue was up there, she was the only one up there, and Dr. Light proceeded to rape her. And in the middle of the act is when Barry Allen and Hal Jordan showed up, and all the Justice Leaguers, and they stopped him.
They beat the living shit out of him, as you do.
Fuck out of him. So that's why they're looking for Dr. Light, because Ralph thinks that maybe for that, he's the one that murdered Sue Dibney. They end up they're still telling more of the story. Dr. Light is crazy, like I'll find you again, blah blah blah. And then they decide to use Zatanna to kind of go against their code. They take a vote, and the vote ends up going the way of basically wiping Dr. Light's mind, so he doesn't remember anything. But not only did they do that, they went a bit further and kind of lobotomized him a little. So if you've read comics where Dr. Light kind of was a joke of a villain, that's how they explain that, because they basically changed his character. Yeah, which I think at some point in time they referenced that somebody says that how did he get onto the satellite, because he's always such a fucking moron, and it was like, oh well, we kind of made him that moron that he is. Then we get to a scene that's kind of like the villains version of the satellite, and there's a whole bunch of villains hanging out. Throughout this whole book, they're always talking to the Calculator, which is basically the villains version of Oracle, and he's giving them different jobs, giving them different pieces of information. They end up finding Dr. Light, and he has Deathstroke for protection. They end up fighting, and Deathstroke ends up taking out the majority of the Justice League, just because he is super smart. He uses 90% of his brain, whereas most normal people only use about 10%. Dr. Midnight also discovers that Sue Dibney didn't die from being burned alive, as they had thought, that she was dead before the burning of the body, and that was just used to throw people off. Kind of skipped around there. Justice League fighting Deathstroke. He takes them all out. And then in the middle of the fight, something happens that triggers Dr. Light's memory, and he remembers everything. And we see a scene there with a character that wasn't there before, and that's Batman. Then Dr. Light kind of blows up. Dr. Light and Deathstroke get away. Everyone wakes up, and Superman's there, kind of helping them all up. And then they talk about how they had wiped other villains' memories before, not necessarily lobotomizing them, but wiped their memories because they had found out their identities throughout the years. They explain it as a reason that Ollie and Hawkman had always been fighting, to which Wally is like, I thought you guys were just fighting about politics, not because of this incident. Then we switch to Captain Boomerang. He has been given information that he has a son that he didn't know about, or he did and just didn't. He just got the information of where his son is. And this kid walks up to the car and is like, are you waiting for someone? And he's like, nah, and then kind of ends there. And we get a scene between Robin and his dad. And for those of you that listen to our War Games episodes, this takes place in that time where Tim Drake's dad didn't want him being Robin. And then the issue ends with someone attacking Ray Palmer's ex-wife, Jean Lorning, and it looks like they're hanging her off the back of a door. He managed to call Ray in time. He uses his he goes subatomic, travels through the phone, and manages to save her. They look through her apartment, much like the Dibneys. There's no sign of forced entry. No, like all the windows were locked, doors are locked. They don't know how someone got in there. Then we jump back to Captain Boomerang. He's still outside his son's house. His son comes up and is like, hey, you're Captain Boomerang, aren't you? Are you my dad? So, like, he knows who his dad is. And they end up kind of having a father-son moment, which is funny because if you only know Captain Boomerang from like the CW shows or from Suicide Squad, he is not a fit guy. He's kind of dumpy and fat and kind of a joke. Batman is trying to figure out who the murderer is by asking the question, who has the most to gain from attacking the loved ones of the heroes. Green Arrow goes to talk to Hal Jordan, who at this time was dead and was the Spectre. This is before he came back, before Jeff Johns brought him back. And he's just basically like, I know who it is, but I can't help you just because a higher power kind of controls the Spectre and it won't let him. or won't let him say anything. And then that issue ends with Lois Lane at work getting a note saying, "I know who your husband is," and the S is in the Superman shield. And it says, "You're next." And we get, the next issue starts off with the heroes taking down kind of the good chunk of the villains we've seen throughout the issue, kind of hanging out, Deadshot, Merlin, a bunch of others. Ray Palmer and his wife have gotten back together, kind of, or at least because of the events, they've fallen back into bed. Who knows if they've fallen back into love, but then we get Captain Boomerang having more father-son time, teaching his son how to throw a boomerang. His son is a prodigy at it, and then he throws a boomerang, it's headed right for his dad, and we end up finding out that he also has super speed, and he ends up saving the senior Captain Boomerang. Next we have Tim Drake and his dad. His dad's basically saying, like, "I know I don't like you doing this, but you gotta do it. Go save people." And he leaves, and Tim Drake's father finds a box that has a note with his name on it, and the R in the Drake looks like the Robin signal, and it has a gun in it that says "Protect yourself." And kind of from there, someone breaks into Tim Drake's house, and we find out it's Captain Boomerang. And Captain Boomerang throws a razor-tip boomerang. At the same time, Tim Drake's dad shoots, and they both die. Robin and Batman are rushing back home. Tim Drake gets there just in time to see his dad's dead body. He knows he's dead, but he still tries to save him. And there's a really good panel there of Batman hugging Tim Drake while he's just wrecked.
He is ugly crying.
Yeah, he is.
Just more of kind of getting the point across of, what happens when people's loved ones or the superheroes' loved ones are attacked. Kind of their feelings. We get back to Dr. Light. There's some foreshadowing. There are seeds in this book that kind of set up a lot of stuff that happened throughout all of DC months after this. But we kind of see Dr. Light contemplating things. And then we find out the other deep, dark secret. When they mind-wiped and lobotomized Dr. Light, Batman was there, and he didn't want anything to do with it. And was super angry, so they the Justice League mind-wiped Batman as well, which is a big no-no, and is what leads or led to a bunch of distrust he had of his own teammates and spying on them, and that's stuff for later down the road. But then we get back to Dr. Midnight. He notices he's doing the autopsy on Sue's brain, and he ends up seeing little footprints in her brain. So we know that someone killed her by standing on her brain, which caused like an aneurysm, and that's how she died. Then the issue ends with Ray and Jean kind of back in bed, kind of falling back for each other. And then we get to the end, which is everyone thinks it's Ray, but then you find out that it's his ex-wife Jean that did it. She didn't mean to kill Sue. She was just trying to scare her because she wanted Ray back in her life. She wanted to scare, the heroes into kind of caring for their loved ones again. And Jean is super crazy and tries to justify it and said that she brought an extra weapon just in case. Killing Sue was an accident, but she burned the body afterwards to make it look like it, kind of throw the trail off. She gets locked up in Arkham. The Justice League has this big secret now of the mind wipes that's not quite kosher with everyone that knows about it. And they hint that Batman knows. They don't explicitly say it in this, but he knows. He knows what happened. The heroes, it just kind of ends with people being with their loved ones, and then we end with Ralph Dindy in bed, talking like he's talking to his wife. We don't know if he's crazy or just sad or both, but it ends with him using his elongated arm to turn the light off on her side of the bed. The end.
Analysis.
You want to discuss or tell me why this book became so divisive amongst comic book fans? You and Mike probably both chime in on that one.
So there is a lot of strong feelings about this book, I imagine. Maya. I'm waiting for Maya to dissent. He'll say out loud when he starts dissenting, I guess, right? So this book has strong feelings on both sides. There are many people on both sides of this issue.
Many fine people on both sides.
Fine people on both sides. No, part of it, a lot of this comes through. This was one of the first major projects Dan DiDio did after coming on board to DC. So he's the current publisher of DC Comics. So for things are good and bad. So Dan DiDio pretty much directs the editors. So the editors do and watch the bidding, and Dan tells the editors what's going on. It very much is a death of childhood moment in time. So it's like Old Yeller dying, among other things. This is really one of the it's a major comic book that is, where is my fun, go happy, go lucky. It's such a serious topic. I mean, we're looking at murder and rape and cover-ups, and it's just adult.
And emotional manipulation and
emotional and psychological manipulation.
Adults behaving badly. So people are coming through as, where's my awesome Batman, Superman stories?
Wow, a lot of my heroes I liked are kind of shitty.
Yeah. And they're like, well, this was what was expedient at the time. And you're like, where is the... and part of the big challenge with the DC for the longest time is kind of like a gods among men. They are the held-up ideal. And adventures the held-up ideal goes through.
They're not as relatable as, say, like a 16-year-old Peter Parker that has bad luck.
Yeah, Marvel goes, here's a dude that gets powers versus here is, Batman's a guy. Batman's a god. You can say whatever you want. He's a god.
Money can make you a god.
What's your superpower?
Money.
I'm rich. And there really is there. So, but you've got this here, and then people go, DC, what are you doing to the comics that I love? Now you're having make me face things I don't want to be facing or addressing. And it really makes the readers uncomfortable. And so you'll see a lot of people go, this is like the worst book ever written or ever made, because it kind of changed comics in a significantly huge way.
This, like I kind of mentioned before, this led into so many seeds from this led into so many things that ended up leading into Infinite Crisis, which this was kind of there were a few other like little hints here and there, but this is kind of the first big thing that really led into this like 2-year story they were telling.
By all means, it's got crisis in the title. DC doesn't use the word crisis lightly.
Yeah.
So
I know that recently from reading Heroes in Crisis.
So with the word crisis in it, it's a personal story on this one. It's not multi-universe thing going on, but it's definitely a crisis of the DC universe. And I mean, it's the perfect title for it, because it is the identity of what is DC Comics and which way are they going. This is much a referendum as the publishing house.
As it is to describe that, or even the individual characters too.
Yeah, it's got layered with meaning.
Talk about, heroes, how does it reflect on their identity? If, I'm a hero, I do good, but, you saw something you shouldn't have seen, so we're going to wipe your mind and think it's okay.
That's right.
Oh, but you were really awful. You did it.
My superheroes don't behave this way. What are you doing?
You crossed the line, so we're going to dumb you down a little bit, too, by getting into your brain.
Right. So when it becomes a whole thing, you see reasons like, my heroes I know and love don't behave this way. You guys are all wrong. Why are you fucking this up?
Well, it's an important thing to realize, because, I mean, we look at, like, the kind of before this, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, all the mainstay DC characters.
Mm-hmm.
There was a very set thing of right and wrong. So, like, the Joker was bad, Batman was good, because Batman doesn't kill, Batman doesn't use guns.
Unless he does.
He does, but yeah. In general, that's kind of the thing he's known for.
There wasn't a whole lot of gray area.
Yeah, exactly.
Good and bad.
It was good and bad. It was Lex Luthor bad, Superman good. And, then with this coming out, all of a sudden it's like, okay, so just because you're a good person, like we said, doesn't mean you can't do shitty things. And it kind of goes into the whole, like, do the ends justify the means, the greater good, and all that going forward. And you can definitely see an influence going forward. I mean, you can just look at the whole Injustice world they built. That was based off the video game, where Superman does go out and kill the Joker because he ended up, by his actions, killing Lois Lane.
And then he ends up becoming a fascist leader.
Yeah. It was basically what would happen if Superman actually was selfish and, like, was vengeful and was a vengeful god. And there's a whole long-going Injustice storyline that's been going kind of in tandem with one of the random DC universes. But I don't think you would have seen that if this comic hadn't existed, or some big turning point happened in the DC world. And I'm still relatively new to DC. I mean, I've read a lot of it for this podcast, but in general, I read some Batman and Superman every so often. But the interesting thing with that is if people reading this who were our age back then, when we were in early 20s, it's also kind of it applies to our lives back then, because at that point in time in your life is when you really do start getting disillusioned. I mean, you turn 18, you move out, you go to college, you think you can conquer the world, you graduate college, or you start working, and it's your mid-20s, you're kind of like, you're finally have enough experience to understand that, yeah, everything isn't black and white. And two, the people you like, maybe your parents, you can now look at them as flawed people, not just these parents you looked up to. And three, that, yeah, guess what, life is pretty shitty, and sometimes you have to do things you may not like to do, or even agree with, if it's going to be at that point in time, it is from your viewpoint the right thing to do. Because like wiping Dr. Light, wiping Batman, Dr. Light was more vengeful. Batman was, we have to do this or else we're getting in trouble. It was covering our asses. But yeah, they did think they were doing the right thing. So, well, and to play devil's advocate, it wasn't necessarily that they were wiping the memories for themselves or their selfish reasons. It was to protect their family members more than anything else. At least that's the way it's stuff too. So, Right, what was that? With Dr. Light, they were doing it more to be they did that to neuter him, and then to neuter him. It was more like the. Well, okay, yeah, I guess the neutering is a different thing, but yeah, but I guess when they talk about the other people that they've done it to, they sort of implied that it was mainly when it was to protect their. It was to protect their family. Well, there's an interesting commentary in here which I really like that they sort of briefly touch on, where it was this idea that they don't wear masks to protect themselves, they wear masks to protect their family and friends. Yeah. Which I think is actually kind of an interesting idea, because if you look at it, that makes a logical sense, because logically speaking, if you were in fear of your own safety enough to wear a mask, then why would you go out and risk yourself to do this anyway? You know what I mean? So that kind of makes sense as to why they wear masks. It's kind of an interesting, different perspective. Like that isn't necessarily always brought up, which I thought was kind of just an interesting statement that was just something that stuck out to me that I really quite liked. Anybody else have any thoughts? So the one thing I brought up as far as the warning at the beginning was that, there is a graphic rape scene. No, there's no nudity, but you can very much see what's going. And the whole act is focusing on the victim's face and what she's going through. And okay, we look at this. This is a book from 14 years ago, and I think hopefully we've kind of gone away from. It doesn't even feel like it's been that long since this book came out. Yeah, I would say if you would look at newer stuff, especially with Gail Simone doing so much now, you probably wouldn't see this kind of story in a book, unless it actually was truly 100% relevant. Because back then the thing was, okay, what's the worst thing you do to a woman, or is rape them? We didn't even stop thinking about the fact that men can get raped too. And really, it was like, yes, this explains what a horrible person Dr. Light is, but you could have shown that in a completely different way. Because again, I just got out watching a movie. When this comes out, it'll be in theaters for a while, called Boy Erased. It's basically an autobiography of a kid who was the son of a pastor, realized he was gay, and was put into gay conversion therapy. Before all this happens, he's being interviewed to write down your sins, basically, what have you done with someone of the same sex that would be considered sinful. And he writes this guy's name down. I think it's Henry. And you find out this was a guy who was from a different church, that they went to college together. They were really good friends. One night, Henry spends the night and rapes the main character. And so for the purpose of that story, and because it was the person telling his own story, it was relevant to what was happening, what was going on. But again, with this, it showed something really horrible and disgusting that happened to a purely innocent person. But I can guarantee you, if it had been a male character, you never would have seen that until later on with Nightwing with what's her name, Tarantula. Which even that, this is within the same probably 2 years of that happening. Which I don't agree with either, because again, there's better ways to show that someone's a horrible, despicable person. So they could have. This is really shitty to say just saying something like this. They could have done something different, like just had him really beat the shit out of her or something like that. Yeah. Exactly, and maybe put she was in a coma for X amount of time, and that's why they think she might have been dying, so that's why we're going to go after him. But there's better ways to put someone in peril. Or even he wants to scare her but not hurt her, and he pushes her, and she hits her head, and then goes into a coma, and they're like, "What the fuck did you do to her?" Right, and that would have been a better way to handle it. But we talked about with Reason books earlier that these are still somewhat a product of their times. So for back then, people weren't quite as open-minded or understanding of, especially ever since with the Me Too movement, more and more people are realizing that, yes, this does happen, and no, it's not appropriate to use this as, your driving point to put someone in trauma. So. Yeah, there is, even reading it now from a modern perspective, there's definitely not even certain, there's a lot of sort of fridging of women, in this book. And that's, the bummer of it is that, it really pretty much is the epitome of that, where it's, using
the loved ones in these people's lives as the excuse to make to drive the action, so they become the victims, so that the heroes have a reason to do something. But you know what I mean? Like that's part of the shitty part about
it's bridging and damseling. So
yeah,
I'll just say one last thing because I've been talking for a bit and I'll shut up.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed the fact that this does feature a lot of the characters of the Justice League, but the Holy Trinity isn't really in it that much. Wonder Woman's in it briefly. Superman shows up. He's more on the farm working with his mom, Pa Kent. So it was fun to see characters that I'm not as familiar with taking the main storyline and running with it, because I am Green Arrow. I know from the TV show Arrow, which is completely different from what we're getting here. And it was kind of fun to see the people who aren't always the focus of these stories getting to have their moment to shine and do something interesting.
Kind of keeping them out of the story almost keeps them as them being the shining beacon in the DC universe. Having them not have this dirty laundry kind of still keeps them the moral compass. Having the Trinity kind of stay out of it.
Well, I mean, and that's probably a lot to do with the purpose as to why they did it that way.
Sure.
Can you imagine the uproar if they would have had Superman be the one to be like, let's wipe their mind?
Yeah.
Well, and again, we couldn't, we'd have that nowadays with the Injustice world, but back then, that's they had to keep that beacon on them and be like, hey, these are our stars who we are held to a higher standard, and here's why, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that if you had them too terribly, I also just don't see Wonder Woman putting up with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't think if she was around, she would have allowed all that to happen.
They would have had to wipe her mind too if she would have been there. And Super.
Yeah, which I don't know if they have the. Well, maybe she does have the ability. I guess because Superman is vulnerable to magic.
Yeah, so they probably could have done it.
That leads into this whole other fucked up thing as to what horrible things have other people done that we don't know about or that they've been made to forget about. And then it does open up the world of very interesting possibilities as far as stories go.
Mm-hmm. Cocktails.
Because he always goes last, we'll leave Todd for last because he wants to be last on everything today. Mr. Maya, birthday boy, what is your cocktail?
I'm keeping with the theme of the book, and my drink is a mind eraser, which is 2 ounces of vodka, 2 ounces of coffee liqueur, 2 ounces of club soda. Add the coffee liqueur and vodka into a rocks glass over ice. Top it with club soda. Serve with a straw. And Adam said he got it once at a bar, and he said that you had to drink it all in one go.
Yeah, you put the straw at the bottom, and you suck as hard as you can until you get all of it out.
They just wanted to see you suck as hard as you can.
Yeah, probably
in a public place.
Yeah, this wasn't on that wasn't on the recipe that I found. But if you want to do it, go for it.
Okay, well, mine's in a similar sense, and so I will go next. I'm actually very proud of mine, to be honest with you. Yeah. Mine is from a very famous bartender in Springfield named Mo. This is called the Forget Me Shot. Mm-hmm. So there are what is in the TV show referenced, and then this recipe has sort of substituted other things, but we'll say what it is. Okay, so it is a quarter of an ounce of Jägermeister, a quarter ounce of sloe gin, a quarter of an ounce of triple sec, a quarter ounce of quadruple sec, which they say you can do as triple sec with a few drops of orange flower water and orange bitters. And then some gunk from a dead dog's eye. They say do a pinch of salt. A quarter of an ounce of absolute pickle, which is I don't think that actually exists, but they do a bar spoon of vodka and a bar spoon of pickle brine. The red stripe from Aquafresh toothpaste, and 1 drop of hot sauce, which I believe is supposed to be a scorpion. So you add all the ingredients in your glass, stir with a pregnancy test until it's positive, drink, and forget.
My God, that's awesome.
I'm very proud of that drink, actually. I wish The Simpsons could create every cocktail for me because I was pretty happy about that one.
And then sell them in Simpsons Land at Universal.
Yeah, they don't. You can get Duff beer, but other than that, they don't have. They don't have a Flaming Moe either, though. I don't think.
Of a Halo.
Well, I'm going down to Florida. I wonder if I'll have to look to see if they have a Simpsons Land in Florida as well. I don't know if they do or not. But it might be bigger. Mr. Adam, what is your cocktail?
Okay, so my cocktail is called the Shrinking Punch. So you're going to take a pitcher, fill it with ice. You're going to add 2 cups of vodka, 4 cups of cranberry juice, 2 cups of orange juice, 1 orange freshly squeezed, and 2 cups of seltzer water. You simply stir that, you ladle into a cup, and you garnish with an orange slice.
Okay. And Mr. Todd, what is your cocktail?
Mine is the Lady in Red. Is what it's called. It's a watermelon and a coconut rum cocktail. So I'll read the ingredients to you real quick. It's got you use about half of a watermelon, a quarter cup of simple syrup, a juice of a lemon, 3 generous splashes of coconut rum, a small bunch of fresh mint leaves, and ice cubes. So if you're making this up here, what you need to do is you scoop out the watermelon flesh and you dice that. So you just chop it up small. You blend it, and then you want to puree it. And then you put the pureed watermelon stuff back into the blender again. And you add your simple syrup, lemon juice, coconut rum, and mint leaves, and you pulse it a few more times. And put ice cubes in a glass and pour it over the ice cubes. And you've got your Lady in Red mixed cocktail drink.
That's kind of like a watermelon-y mojito.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Sounds pretty tasty, actually.
Parting thoughts.
It's a mainstream DC book, and it really does deserve the mature rating. For most people, it's like, oh, my get into Batman. There's a lot of stuff going, maybe not. But, like, even giving younger kids the Court of Owls, I'm not too afraid of.
Yeah.
As you watch this sort of thing. And you can watch other things, or Wonder Woman or Superman, you're just good to go. Oftentimes, the mature or the harder side of DC is off-label from their main imprint. But this is a major event in the heart of DC itself, and it's really kind of a signal of things that changed, or what they're not afraid to. They're not afraid to talk about certain things at times. Now, it is in the past, as people have said, it's dated itself by how it goes at it, but it really takes a hard look of examine your heroes, and should they be?
Okay.
Don't meet your heroes.
Don't meet your heroes. It's like never buy your dream car, because then it just becomes a car.
Final grades.
First grade for
Self-contained.
We will start with the birthday boy, Mr. Maya.
Self-contained. I'm going to give it an A, even though it sets up other stuff. Those things aren't necessarily crucial to this story wrapping up. I thought it kind of wrapped everything up and told what it needed to tell, so I'm going to give it an A.
Okay. I will agree with Mr. Maya for that very same reason. Mr. Adam.
I'll go with an A as well, just like Maya said. This, you can pick this up, and there's a whole story arc, characters do develop, and yeah, it does leave some threads dangling to go forward, but it's not necessary.
Okay. Mr. Todd.
Yeah, it's the Fawns for that one. It's an A.
Yeah. Okay.
Writing grade.
For Brad Meltzer, what is your grade, Mr. Adam?
I'll go with an A as well. I mean, this was really well written. The characters were... no, I'm going to go with the B+. Just because, the whole rape thing, I think that was unnecessary. But, I mean, aside from that, the characters are well written. The story's interesting. I'm still kind of not sure how I feel about his ex-wife being the killer in the long run. Just because it was nice to see someone who wasn't a traditional DC supervillain doing this. But at the same time, it was kind of like, I don't know, I felt like it could have, I was kind of meh about the wife being the killer.
Could that have been why it took them so long to find her? Because they wouldn't have even thought that it was one of their own that...
Well, because they were off chasing off their own red herrings, and like even the reader is taken off on all these red herrings for quite a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, and I did like that. It kind of felt like, I don't know, it was kind of weird for me, that's all.
No, that makes sense. Mr. Todd.
You didn't love it, you didn't hate it, but it was weird for you.
That part of it was, yeah.
I give it an A-. It Adam makes some very salient points on there. It's kind of aged itself in a rough way, so it's a sign of the times. I don't think it has nearly the kind of issues that, say, Dickens does. Trying to read Dickens today is god-awful.
Yeah.
So the subject matter and how they went about it is rough, but the writing itself was crisp and salient. So, A-.
Well, I'm going to go with a B+. Mainly it's the fridging within it that I kind of... Other than that, like, I think what he did technically, I think, was very good. But yeah, there's just a little bit of issue of, And I kind of understand that it was part of his focus was making the family members the important part as to why the superheroes were being protective of things and trying to show that. But that part of it was a little unsettling. But outside of that, I liked it. Mr. Maya.
I'm going to go with an A-, pretty much for everything that's been said. Other than the revelations of the characters, I don't think the way that the characters were written, I don't think, he betrayed their character at all, and was able to explain their actions within their character pretty well, and was able to tell a good murder mystery with it. So I'm going to give it an A-.
Art grade.
For Rags Morales, what is your grade, Mr. Maya?
I'm going to go with an A. Rags sometimes has weird faces and other stuff I've read, but here kind of the faces were the point.
That ugly crying was amazing.
Yeah, the ugly crying with Tim, and just the emotion on people's faces in this really stuck out to me. So I'm going to give it an A.
Okay, Mr. Adam.
I'm going to go with A as well, just pretty much for everything Maya said. It was beautiful to look at, and it was, yeah.
And how about the Michael Turner covers?
Oh, yeah.
This is just a couple of years before he passed away, and man, these covers are beautiful. Like especially the cover to issue 7, which is the actual cover to the version that Todd has.
Right, the 10-year anniversary. See the
all the capes hanging up.
Capes hanging on the hook. And it's just one of those where they're all just kind of depressed. I watched that and I like a feeling of depression. It's just kind of coming over me on that. Yeah, that art is fantastic. I'll segue into mine and give it an A as well. I mean, if you had asked me what I've done to make it better, I'm not sure I could. Even on the critiquing side of things, it was ugly crying and the faces you watch that, but it was quite emotional and it really carries the point across.
That panel of Batman holding Tim Drake is one of those comic panels that's forever etched in my memory. Like I can see it without even having to look at the page.
Yeah. No, it was heartbreaking and perfect. So
yeah.
I will also give it an A. My only complaint is, and I'm trying to find it again, but there's one image of Superman like with his neck craned at a weird angle, looking back at the camera.
He was presenting.
Or something. There's just like one image that I'm like, this is like the only real weak part in the entire.
The Marvel woman go-to pose. I mean, prior to like Ms. Marvel, everyone, if you take a look at all the movie posters that have Marvel character
where they're all showing off their ass?
They're all showing off their ass and looking over their shoulder.
Yeah, it's not quite that extreme. Like, it's more like he's looking to the side, but like his neck is just a strange angle. Like, it looks really, it's very bizarre. But other than that, it kind of bothers me.
Final grades.
We will start with the birthday boy, Mr. Maya.
I'm going to give it an A overall. It's one of my favorite stories. It's not an easy thing to read, but it's overall one of my favorite books that I've read.
Okay.
Vitamins.
Yeah, I'm going to go with an A- just because of a little bit of the weakness in the story, writing stuff. That's mainly my issue there. Mr. Adam.
I'm an A- as well. I love this story. This is the first time I've actually read it, and I've always heard so much stuff about this, both good and bad, that I wanted to make my own opinion. It's a very well done story. I love the fact that we do introduce the ambiguity between good and evil, and that good men do bad things and good women do bad things sometimes. But for the fridging, the damseling, and the unnecessary rape scene, that diminishes it a bit. I do understand this is from a long time ago, and we know better now, and probably wouldn't have bugged me that much back then. But today, with looking through a new lens onto society and culture, that's not acceptable. So,
and then Mr. Todd.
I'm going to give it an A. At the end of the day, it was it's a bit of a product of its time, sure, but the execution and for everything was really fantastic. What's interesting, the next Crisis book DC did, Infinite Crisis, I got the omnibus for that recently, and it's 1,500 pages.
Holy cow.
Tie-ins.
Well, yeah, that has all the tie-ins, but it also has a bunch of the stuff that...
Yeah.
Because once Infinite Crisis came out, there were only, if I remember correctly, a handful of tie-ins while the actual event was going.
Right.
A lot of that meat is the 2 years worth of books leading up to it.
Sure, by all means. While you take a look at this thing, and the 7 issues is so highly contained.
Yeah.
And everything at it. So it is a tight, taut, highly contained story. They got a lot of stuff out in a brief period of time.
Grade point average.
Your GPA ends up coming out to a 3.85, which is just above an A-. Not quite an A, but that seems pretty on par with what we were all agreeing with.
Recommendations.
As we record this, this is a month in the future from us recording it now.
Mm-hmm.
The first issue of Grant Morrison and Liam Sharp's The Green Lantern came out last night at midnight, and it is a lot of fun. It's kind of pulling everything back and focusing on them being space cops instead of kind of these big, huge, epic, all the multi-lanterns and godlike villains. It's kind of scaling it back to space cops.
We'll leave that to Snyder for now.
What's that?
We'll leave that to Scott Snyder for now.
You'll leave what?
Multicolored lantern.
Oh, yeah. What's he doing with
Justice League, whatnot?
Oh, yeah. He's doing other lantern,
Yeah, he's doing weird stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, no, this book is good. It very much has a high sci-fi, 2000 AD vibe, which, that's kind of what made Grant Morrison. Mm-hmm. So, and the art is beautiful. It's by a guy named Liam Sharp, and yeah, that's it. I'll go grab it and look through it.
Cool.
I will go next. I picked this up at Big Adventure this last weekend. At the Boom Studios had a booth there. I bought this book. I bought 2 copies of it. One I'm planning on giving to my niece, but I wanted to read it before I gave it to her just to be safe. And this is completely counter to what we've just read. This is just kind of fun, not necessarily silly, but just a fun book called Lumberjanes. It's won a fuck ton of awards for ongoing series and things like that. It's about a group of pretty badass Girl Scouts types who are at summer camp, and for some reason there is a lot of weird creatures and things going on in their general vicinity, and they are doing their best to try to counteract it. There is some funny stuff. There's zombie Boy Scouts. There are evil Yetis. There's a big snake monster in the middle of the river when they go canoeing, and it's 4 issues. Each issue is a little adventure, but it's really fun. I understand why it's getting all the accolades. I ripped through it, but love the hell of it, and I'm excited to get more of them. So if you've read this and you're like, hey, I would like a nice little palate cleanser, I would say Lumberjanes is a really good palate cleanser. At least it works for me. Mr. Todd, do you have any recommendations?
I do. There is a newer book that came out by Neil Gaiman with Raphael Albuquerque doing a lot of the art called A Study in Emerald. And what they've gone ahead and done is Neil Gaiman is doing a Sherlock Holmes story meets Lovecraft.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, that's all you really need to know. But Sherlock Holmes era in that time, so it's not modern day Sherlock, it's old Sherlock, but a Lovecraftian infused tale that he's trying to solve.
Cool. And Mr. Adam.
Again, this came out about a month ago from when this airs. But that movie I talked about earlier, Boy Erased, it's got Lucas Hedges, who was in Manchester by the Sea a couple years ago. And like I said, it's about a kid going through conversion therapy. The movie itself is okay. It's based on a book, and you can very much tell by the pacing and how there's a lot of scenes of just the main character kind of gazing off in thought, which is in a book, you would know what they're thinking, but this being a movie and showing what actions they're doing doesn't really follow through. But the reason why this is a movie that I think everyone should see, because it does show people the realities of what's actually going on in these re-education. They're basically re-education camps, and involves everything from beating kids up to brainwashing them to, in one sense, almost waterboarding someone as they're supposedly baptizing the demon out of them. You should leave that movie very, very angry and very, very upset. And as someone who's gone through XK therapy, not to that level, but a lot of what it hit home was, correct, pretending your father's next to you so you can scream and yell at him and cuss him out for failing you as a father, and just a bunch of bullshit that should never happen to anyone. But in many states, the U.S., I think almost half of them still allow XK therapy to happen to minors. And honestly, it is a form of child abuse. And if you didn't know anything about it and thought, oh, it's just counseling, this is a way to show you what's actually going on and hopefully change your mind and help our leaders pass legislation that outlaws this form of child abuse. So
okay,
not really a happy recommendation, but I think an important one. So
okay.
Not really.
Well,
so watch that and then read Identity Crisis.
Exactly.
There you go.
And then read Lumberjanes to wash it all away.
Yes.
And I will say again that the Boy Erased does have a very explicit rape scene that was really, really hard to watch.
So keeping in the theme of
the book, yeah. Like I actually got out and pretty much sobbed the whole way home. So it was hard.
Yeah, I remember you got home and I was like, "How was the movie?" And you're like, "Well, it wrecked me."
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, that's fun.
I said it was important, not fun.
I know. I'm like, I got no segue out of that.
Next.
Next week on Funny Books on Firewater.
So next week we are going to be continuing on our month of family drama with God Country from Donnie Cates. Is that correct, Todd?
Donnie Cates.
Todd, I think this was your recommendation, I believe.
Connie Yates.
Yes, it was. It's a story about this man has moved back in with his father in Western Texas. His dad, his wife, his mother is gone, and his wife has a raging case of Alzheimer's. And that's the beginning of the story here. So you've got an abusive old man with a raging case of Alzheimer's, and a young man. His son is a young man with a wife and child being pulled in multiple directions. And that's how it begins.
Yay!
Is that kind of like in South Park when they had the Harley Boys and they had raging clues?
Oh, I love that.
I've
got a raging clue.
My clue's pointing over this way. I got clue goo.
What I will say, the sword of all swords is in this book.
That's true.
How'd you know the name for my penis?
There you go.
Sword of all swords. Well,
someone referred to it as a dagger, but
that's true. Well, anyway, so join us next week for God Country with the Sword of all swords and a raging clue. Anybody else have anything else before we go?
I think we're good.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.
And scene.
So that happened. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode. This band of knuckleheads will be back next week with a new episode. Until then, you can find them on Facebook, Instagram, and Tumblr as Funny Books and Firewater, and on Twitter as @FirewaterCast. Go to funnybooksandfirewater.com for the most up-to-date information, as well as cocktail recipes from this and past episodes. Thank you for joining us. And until next week, support your local comic shop, tip your bartender well, and stay hydrated.